Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld, and today we're going to compare the brand new SMGs in BF1 to the PDWs in BF4. And this should be a pretty interesting comparison because this weapon category was only just starting to appear by the end of World War I. There was no real design benchmark to go on at the time, which resulted in a range of dramatically different guns like the slow-firing MP18 to the super-fast M1918. But as different as they all were from each other, they don't even compare to modern PDWs. So the question is, how different are they actually in-game? Now, to kick off, the first thing you need to know about the new SMGs is that of all the weapons in BF1, they're probably the most similar to their counterparts in BF4. And that's because they still pack the best punch of all the guns in close quarters, with a very similar max damage of 23, which drops off to about 13. For run and gun players, well, you'll be happy to know that they also still have great accuracy on the move, great hipfire, and a great reload time. But of course, just like in previous games, they also aren't great all-round weapons, and in BF4, they will still have a very hard time at longer ranges. The big difference about the new SMGs in BF1 is the fact that, like most of the other guns, they've been nerfed to fit within a very specific range bracket. And even more so than in BF4 and Hardline, you're going to be almost completely useless with these guns at anything more than very close range. And that's because the damage drop-off of both of the new SMGs starts very quickly and only stretches out to about 38 meters compared to 50 meters on average in BF4. And so what that means is that you'll consciously want to avoid shooting at anything further than 20 meters away, because at anything more than that, you'll just be wasting ammo. Now, with that being said, even though these guns don't do quite as much damage, I should point out that compared to in BF4, they are actually slightly more accurate. For example, the base and moving accuracy of the new guns is now only 0.3 and 0.5 compared to most of the PDWs in BF4, which came in at around 0.4 and 0.6. The other interesting thing is that the spread increase is now a lot lower at 0.03 to 0.05, which is on average about twice as good as it was in BF4. And so what that means is that you won't need to feel so bad about holding down the trigger now, which in some way does kind of make up for that lower damage model. Like with just about every stat in Battlefield though, this buff has to be balanced out, and in this case it looks like what DICE have done is decided to nerf the recoil pattern. And in particular, what they've increased is the muzzle climb and first shot multiplier, so that both of the new SMGs now have more kick than even the UMP45 does in BF4. This probably won't be a huge problem for veteran players, but in saying that, it was actually the first thing I noticed, and it was something that I did need to get used to. But apart from that though, these guns just more or less feel like regular PDWs, so unless you're completely new to the game, you shouldn't really have too much trouble understanding how they work. Now, bearing all of this in mind and knowing what we know now about the other guns, how do the new SMGs actually stack up in-game? Well, to begin with, although they're pretty much uncontested now at close range, at the end of the day, they're still just like a regular PDW. And depending on whether you like this category or not in BF4, you might see this as a good or a bad thing. But for me personally, as you guys probably know, I was never really a big fan of the Engineer kit. And so to be honest, I didn't really have a good time with the new SMGs either. That's not to say that the new SMGs aren't good or anything, because of all the guns in game at the moment, I think they're actually probably the best balanced. And like I said, these guns pretty much have CQB locked down, which makes me think we're going to see a lot of assault players on the closer range maps. On any of the other maps though, well, the Madsen and just about all of the longer range rifles completely destroy the SMGs. And so unless you like hanging out on the CQB objectives, or you like destroying vehicles, then you're probably going to find yourself picking another class more often than not in BF1. So all in all, I think you can see that the SMGs aren't terrible, and in the context of BF1, they're actually pretty decent as long as you're at close range. And for that reason, I probably wouldn't want to buff or nerf them too much, although I do think maybe the damage drop-off could be a little bit higher. In saying that though, it really depends on whether everything else gets a buff or not, and like I've said in previous videos, I think the LMGs probably will. And if that is the case, then the SMGs will probably end up being underpowered, and they'll probably need a little bit of attention as well. In saying that though, like I said at the start of the video, this was a completely new weapon category at the time, and all the designs were drastically different. So bearing that in mind, they might add in guns in the final game or in future expansions that give us a completely different perspective on the way these guns should work. I guess what I'm trying to say is that although I think we have a pretty good idea of what this category is going to be like, at the end of the day, you got to remember that this is only an alpha. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the final game, and maybe then, fingers crossed, they'll add in some better all-round assault weapons. But anyway guys, that just about wraps up this video, so let me know what you think of the SMGs in the comments section below, and as always, if you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Also, check out the links in the description below if you want to see any more of my videos, or if you want to support my channel on Patreon, and until next time, see you later, and have a good one.